Ethan Cross gasped for air as he woke up on cold, strange ground. His body ached, his head spun, and the heavy scent of dust and burning metal filled his lungs. He blinked several times, trying to focus. He was no longer in his bunk aboard the human freighter Starklimber. This place was not familiar. Above him, 2 suns blazed in the sky, turning everything gold and crimson. Alien trees swayed in the wind, their leaves shaped like giant claws. Around him there were cages, tall spears, strange banners, and a massive crowd cheering from high stone walls. It wasn't a battlefield, and it wasn't a prison. It was an arena. Where am I? He whispered, his voice dry and cracked like old paper. An alien guard in dark armor growled something in a strange language and kicked the cage with his boot. The bars rattled, shaking Ethan's bones. Another guard opened the cage door and yanked Ethan up by the arm. He stumbled, still dizzy, but they didn't wait for him to get steady. They dragged him into the center of the arena, where a circle of symbols glowed faintly under the dust. All around him, alien beings watched, some tall and sharp like walking crystals, others scaled and wide like lizards wearing war paint. But all of them had one thing in common: they were female. Rows and rows of alien females stared down at Ethan with glowing eyes. Some whispered, some laughed, and some just looked confused. Because in the middle of all this stood one human male. A loud horn blew from above, shaking the ground. A voice echoed through the arena in a strange language, then was translated into English. "This is the sacred trial of Kareth." The voice boomed. "Each warrior will fight for the right to become Alpha, the one worthy of taking all chosen mates." Ethan froze. Alpha? Chosen mates? What was going on here? He wasn't supposed to be here. He was just a mechanic, just fixing a shuttle. The last thing he remembered was a flashing light and then blackness. A massive alien male stepped into the ring with him. The alien skin was dark blue, his muscles layered with tribal armor, and his claws dripped with venom. The crowd roared for him. Calling his name, Gracker, the announcer spoke again. "First match, Gracker versus the human." Ethan's stomach dropped. "This is a mistake," he said, raising his hands. "I'm not a warrior. I'm not part of this." But no one cared. Gracker charged, teeth bared, claws ready to slice. Ethan did the only thing his instincts told him. He ducked. The alien's claws missed his head by inches. Gracker turned fast and swung again. Ethan dodged and tripped on the sand, falling hard. But as Gracker moved in for the final blow, Ethan grabbed a rock and slammed it into the alien's leg. Gracker stumbled. Ethan stood, shaking, and somehow headbutted the alien right under the chin. With a grunt, Gracker fell, stunned and not moving. The arena went silent. Then cheers, louder than thunder. Ethan stared at the unconscious alien, then at his own shaking hands. He didn't mean to win. He just didn't want to die. A gate opened, and 2 more aliens entered. The crowd was hungry for more. The announcer didn't even pause. "Next challenge begins," the voice said. "No rest, no retreat." "Wait, what?" Ethan shouted, backing away. But the 2 challengers were already coming for him. He grabbed the fallen Gracker's dropped weapon. It looked like a metal staff with glowing edges. He didn't know how to use it, but he swung it anyway. The first alien tried to grab him, and Ethan's strike hit her shoulder. She screamed and dropped. The other paused, unsure. Ethan stood, chest heaving, face covered in dust and sweat. He didn't look strong, but he looked dangerous, and that was enough. The second challenger backed away slowly, then left the ring. Silence again, and then wild applause. Female aliens were now standing, pointing at Ethan, whispering to each other in awe. He wasn't just surviving, he was winning. Princess Virela, sitting in the royal box, leaned forward, her glowing silver eyes narrowing on him. "A human?" She whispered to her guard. "This changes everything." Ethan collapsed to his knees, exhausted. The arena lights dimmed as the round ended, and the guards pulled him back into the holding area. He didn't understand what was happening, but one thing was clear. He wasn't supposed to survive the first round, and now, he had become something else. A problem for the system, and maybe a target. Asterisk. The guards shoved Ethan into the dark stone chamber. His hands were shaking, his face drenched with sweat. Blood, both his and not his, covered his arms. He sat against the cold wall, trying to understand what just happened. He had fought 3 alien warriors, and somehow he was still breathing. In the observation chamber above the arena, alien commanders gathered. Their faces showed confusion, anger, and concern. One of them, a tall insectoid general with a shining red crest, slammed his clawed fist on the table. "This is unacceptable," he hissed. "A human should not have lasted more than 60 seconds. Another leader, more reptilian in nature, spoke calmly, yet he defeated Gracker and made Ashti retreat. He narrowed his yellow eyes. Maybe this is fate. Princess Virela stood by the tall glass window, watching Ethan's feed from the camera. She said nothing, but a slight smirk curled on her lips. Her voice was quiet, yet it carried power. "His body is weak, but his instinct is wild. He does not fight like our males." In the resting chambers below the arena, Ethan was handed a strange blue liquid by a short, masked servant. He didn't know if it was poison or medicine, but he drank it anyway. The burning in his throat was sharp, but within seconds, his pain faded. He could feel his muscles tighten, his cut seal, his mind clear. "Where am I?" he asked. The servant remained silent, then pointed to the wall. Symbols lit up. A projection activated. It showed a large board with his face, name, species, and ranking. Current champion, Ethan Cross. Species, human, unknown genetic compatibility. High risk reward. Mating candidates interested, 57. Next trial, 12 hours. Ethan's eyes widened. Mating candidates? What the hell is going on? He muttered. He wasn't here for some reality dating show. This wasn't fun. This was war disguised as tradition. Elsewhere, whispers had begun to spread across the female population. A human male had survived the first round. Not only survived. 1. Alien females of different races began discussing him in secret rooms. "He smells different. His eyes. They don't hold pride. They hold fear. And yet he fought. He bled and still stood." Some admired him. Some wanted to test him, and others wanted to claim him. Virela met with the Empress in the royal chamber. The Empress was large, her body covered in gold-plated armor, and her voice shook the walls. "You went to see him," the Empress said flatly. Virela nodded, showing no shame. "He is not what we expected," she replied. "He is dangerous not because of strength, but because he does not understand what he is part of." The Empress stared long and hard, then finally said, "If he survives the next trial, he will no longer be ignored. We may need to act." Back in his chamber, Ethan tried to sleep, but nightmares took him. Dreams of fire, screams, the crowd, claws slashing, his own hands soaked in blood. He awoke with a cry, heart pounding, eyes darting around the room. Then he noticed it, a shadow in the corner, unmoving. "Who's there?" he asked, voice tight. From the shadow stepped a female, tall and glowing with faint bioluminescent skin. She had 4 eyes, soft purple hair, and her voice was gentle. "I will not hurt you," she said. "I only wanted to see the human with my own eyes." Ethan stepped back, unsure if this was a trap. She smiled sadly. "You don't even know what this ritual means, do you?" Ethan shook his head slowly. "I don't even know why I'm here." She walked closer, but kept a respectful distance. "This isn't just a test of strength," she said. "It's our way of choosing the alpha male, the one who will lead our future offspring. Females choose their champions, but once the winner is declared, all mating rights belong to him." Ethan blinked. "You mean all of them?" she interrupted. "If you win, they will not let you leave." The weight of that truth slammed into Ethan like a truck. He wasn't just fighting for his life. He was being tested for breeding. Before he could ask more, the guards returned, and the female faded into the shadows. Ethan was left alone with the terrifying knowledge. He had become the center of something much bigger than he could ever imagine, and now they were watching his every move. Up above, Varela's eyes never left the screen showing Ethan's cell. "He doesn't understand what he's becoming," she whispered to herself, "but soon he will." High above the arena, in the towering palace carved from black stone and silver veins, the Empress of Zalthar stood still. She gazed into a wide holographic display showing the human Ethan Cross, sleeping uneasily in his chamber. He turned, flinched, spoke in his sleep, his body clearly not at rest. Yet even in weakness, the Empress noticed something odd. There was fire in him. "Bring me Varela," she said coldly, her voice echoing like thunder in the royal hall. Moments later, the princess arrived, her posture elegant, her face unreadable. The Empress studied her daughter for a long moment. "You visited him again," she said, not as a question, but a fact. Varela didn't deny it. "I did," she replied softly. "I had to see for myself." The Empress narrowed her golden eyes. "And?" Varela stepped forward, her silver robes trailing behind her like mist. "He is not powerful in the traditional sense," she said, "but he is unpredictable. He fights with fear, not pride, and somehow it makes him more dangerous." The Empress turned away, her long tail dragging over the polished floor. "There are whispers, child," she warned. "Among the females, among the elders. They say the human may be chosen, not by law, but by desire." Varela's eyes flickered with emotion, but she said nothing. The Empress paused, then added, "If he becomes the Alpha, our bloodlines may change forever. Are you ready for that?" Meanwhile, down in the training halls, Ethan stood with a metal staff in hand. Breathing hard, he was being trained now, not kindly, but efficiently. An alien instructor named Koran, a female with dark green armor and spiked arms, barked at him in short bursts. "Again," she said, "strike faster. You move like a wounded larva." Ethan groaned and swung the staff again, barely dodging the blow from her blade. He was bruised, sore, and sleep-deprived, but deep inside, a strange strength was growing. He didn't want to be a fighter, but he was beginning to understand something. This wasn't about escape anymore. This was survival on a deeper level. After the session, he sat alone near the pool of glowing water, where injured warriors rested. He stared at his reflection, the same human face, but eyes that looked older, tired, yet awake, lost yet somehow focused. "You've improved," a voice said behind him. He turned, heart skipping. Princess Varela stood there, her long silver hair braided with stones, her eyes glowing under the night sky. She walked gracefully, like a wave over still water. "You again?" he said, blinking. "You keep showing up like I'm some kind of pet project." She smiled slightly, sitting beside him. "You are far more than a project," she replied. "You are confusing." "Gee, thanks," he muttered, looking away. Varela looked at the water, her tone softer. "You don't understand our ways, Ethan," she said. "This ritual, it's more than fighting. It's about legacy, power, and survival." "I don't want power," he said, his voice low. "I just want to go home." She looked at him carefully. "And yet you stayed alive," she whispered. "You faced death." And it blinked. For a moment, silence filled the air between them. Only the distant sounds of the arena echoed in the background. Cheers, roars, drums beating like a heart. Varela reached out and touched Ethan's hand, gently. He flinched at first, but didn't pull away. Her skin was warm and smooth, glowing faintly with bioluminescence. Their fingers barely touched, but it felt like an electric current moved between them. "I don't know what you are, Ethan Cross," she said, her voice nearly a whisper, "but you are changing things. Females who never cared for tradition now watch you. Others want to use you. Some want to keep you. And you?" he asked, looking into her strange, beautiful eyes. "What do you want?" Varela hesitated, then stood up. "I want to see what happens when the human stops running," she said, and starts choosing. Before he could respond, she turned and walked into the shadows, leaving him with his thoughts. Later that night, Ethan sat in his chamber, staring at the wall. He couldn't sleep, not because of fear, but because of her. Something about Varela stirred emotions he didn't expect: curiosity, confusion, attraction. But it was dangerous. Everything here was dangerous. And tomorrow, the next round of the trial would begin. A new challenge. This time not with weapons, but with intention. A test of mental strength, emotional clarity, and something the aliens called primal resonance. He didn't know what that meant, but he could feel it. Deep in his bones, he wasn't just part of the ritual anymore. He was the center of it, and the queen, the princess, she was watching him. Not as prey, but as something else, something rare, something important, something desired. The arena was silent, the crowd was gone, the lights were dim, and the sand had settled after the last round. Ethan lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, his heart still pounding from the day's events. He couldn't sleep, even though his body begged for rest. His mind replayed everything: Varela's words, the strange touch, the whispers from the guards. And now, a deeper worry was growing inside him. Why were the guards looking at him like that? In another wing of the palace, a council meeting was underway. The Empress sat at the head of the table, her expression cold and sharp. Around her were advisors, warriors and high-ranking nobles. "The human has advanced too far," one elder growled. "He's not even part of our species, yet the people chant his name." Another female nodded. "The princess watches him with interest, too much interest. If he becomes alpha, he'll shift the balance." The Empress didn't speak for a while. Then, with a slow nod, she gave a silent signal with her fingers. One of her shadow guards bowed and disappeared into the darkness. No words were spoken, but the message was clear: eliminate the human before he wins again. Back in his chamber, Ethan finally drifted into sleep. But it was shallow, broken, full of flashes and sounds. He dreamt of the arena, of Varela's glowing eyes, of claws reaching for his throat. Suddenly, he woke with a jolt, not because of a sound, but because of silence. The hallway outside was always noisy, full of guards and echoes, but now it was too quiet. He sat up slowly, every instinct screaming that something was wrong. And then, he saw it. A shadow moved across the wall, near the ceiling vent. It wasn't a servant. It wasn't a guard. It was a killer. Before he could scream, the assassin dropped silently from above, landing like a predator. The figure was lean, fast, covered in black skin-tight armor that shimmered like smoke. In one hand, a blade that hummed softly, almost musical. Ethan rolled off the bed just as the blade slashed down, cutting the mattress in half. "Who the hell are you?" he yelled, grabbing a broken chair leg for defense. The assassin said nothing. Her mask had no eyes, only a silver design. She moved again, faster than any creature he'd seen. But Ethan didn't wait. He threw the chair leg and ran toward the door. Locked, the assassin lunged again, cutting through the air. But Ethan ducked and grabbed a metal tray from the table. It wasn't a weapon, but it was something. She struck, he blocked. The force knocked him back, but the blade didn't hit flesh. Just as she moved in for the final strike, the door exploded open. Blinding blue light filled the room. Varela stood in the hallway, her hand raised, glowing with energy. Two of her personal guards rushed in, weapons drawn. The assassin turned, tried to flee, but Varela pointed again and fired a pulse of light. It hit the assassin's chest, sending her crashing into the far wall. Unconscious, Ethan dropped to the floor. Panting, holding his ribs, he looked up at Varela with wide eyes. You saved me," he breathed. She rushed to him, kneeling. "You weren't supposed to die tonight," she said, voice shaking slightly. "They moved faster than I thought." Ethan frowned, still trying to catch his breath. "Who sent her?" "Varela." "Didn't answer right away then." In a whisper, she said, "My mother." Ethan stared at her. the weight of those words crashing over him like a storm. The Empress wants me dead? Yes, Varela whispered, because you're winning. Because they see what I see. You're not just some lucky human. You're becoming something they can't control. Ethan sat in silence, overwhelmed. He didn't ask for any of this. He didn't want to be alpha or chosen or worshipped. But now he understood. If he didn't win, he would die. Varela touched his shoulder gently. I'll protect you for as long as I can, she said. But the next trial is coming. And they won't play fair anymore. He nodded slowly. No more confusion, no more denial. This was survival. And the only way out was through. Later that night, the assassin's body was removed in silence. Her identity was never revealed. Official reports claimed it was a rogue attacker. But everyone in the palace knew the truth. The Empress had made her move and failed. In her royal chamber, the Empress sat in silence. She stared at the stars, her claws tapping the armrest. This human is not so fragile after all, she muttered. But he will break. She didn't know that Ethan Cross had already changed. The frightened man from Earth was gone. In his place stood something else, something determined, something no one, not even a queen, could predict. The arena was no longer made of stone and sand. It had transformed. Glowing symbols floated in the air, alien runes spinning like wind chimes of light. The sky above was fake now, a dome filled with stars that weren't real. But what Ethan felt in his chest, that was real. Fear, heat, tension. He stood alone on a glowing platform, his body tense, his heart racing. The trials so far had tested his body, pushed his limits, nearly killed him. But this one was different. There were no weapons, no opponents in sight, only silence, and the eyes of thousands of alien females watching from above, waiting to see what would happen next. A deep voice echoed through the dome. This is the final trial, it announced. The trial of resonance. No blades, no blood, only truth. Ethan had no idea what that meant. He looked around, searching for an explanation. Then, suddenly, the light shifted, and from the shadow stepped Varela. But she looked different, not in her armor, not like a princess. She wore a simple white robe, her silver hair falling around her shoulders, her eyes glowing softly. What's happening? Ethan asked, his voice shaking slightly. Varela didn't answer. She stepped closer, her hands open, peaceful. This is not a battle, she said gently. This is a test of soul. The final choice is not made by you. She added, it's made by us. From the other side of the arena, more figures emerged. Female champions from each alien race. Tall, scaled, armored, feathered, glowing. Each one powerful in her own way. They formed a wide circle around Ethan, standing in silence. Watching, waiting. The resonance trial tests your core, Varela said, walking slowly around him. Your intent, your fear, your truth. He frowned, confused. You mean, they're going to read my mind? She shook her head slowly. No, they will feel your essence. Not just your thoughts, your pain, your hunger, your heart. They will know who you are, completely. Ethan swallowed hard. He had survived monsters, claws, and blades, but now his own inner self would be judged. Could he survive that? Varela placed her hand on his chest. Let go, she whispered. Don't fight. Then the circle of females began to hum, low at first, like the sound of distant wind, but it grew. Surrounded him, wrapped him in vibrations he couldn't escape. He fell to his knees, his mind filled with memories, flashes of his past, his childhood, his failures, his loneliness in space, the pain of being forgotten, the fear of dying alone, the guilt of those he couldn't save. All of it, exposed, raw, open. The alien females didn't speak, but they felt it. Each one connected to the human now, tasting his truth. And something happened that none of them expected. They didn't find greed or pride or dominance. They found empathy. They found a man who fought to live, not to conquer, who defended himself not for power, but because he didn't want to die. A man who carried deep sadness, but still stood tall. A man who, even when outnumbered, chose mercy when he could have killed one by one. The females stepped forward. One placed her clawed hand on his shoulder. Another gently touched his face. Another bowed slightly in silence. Virela stood back, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew this would happen. She had felt it the first time she touched him. The voice of the arena boomed again. The trial is complete. The resonance has chosen. The crowd above was utterly silent, all of them waiting for the decision. Would the females choose him, a human, as their alpha? Then, in a moment that would be recorded in history, all the female champions knelt before Ethan, together, united, acknowledging. The one they had felt was worthy. Ethan, still on his knees, looked around in shock. What just happened? He whispered. Virela stepped forward, smiling softly. You didn't win because you're the strongest, she said. You won because you're real. You didn't hide. You showed us your soul. The dome above changed again, turning gold. The crowd erupted into a sound Ethan had never heard before, a mix of howls, roars, songs, and thunder. Cheers, not of war, but of acceptance. A new alpha had been chosen, not by blood, not by species, but by truth. In that moment, Ethan wasn't just a human lost in space. He was something more, a bridge, a symbol, a mate, and behind the throne, in the darkest shadows of the palace, the Empress watched, silent and still. Her plan had failed, and the universe was changing. Ethan Cross stood in the center of the grand hall. The ground beneath him was polished crystal, glowing softly with each step. Above, banners of every alien house hung from tall pillars, swaying slowly in the artificial wind. Dozens of alien females stood in a circle around him, their faces curious, excited, and hungry. He had survived the ritual. He had passed the trial of resonance. He had become the chosen alpha, and now every house, clan, and bloodline wanted a piece of him. Step forward, a voice said sharply. It was the ceremonial speaker, tall and insect-like, holding a staff that pulsed with light. Let the claiming offers begin. Ethan felt like an animal in a cage. He wasn't used to being the center of attention. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't royalty. He was just a mechanic from Earth who had fallen into the wrong place at the wrong time. Now, everyone looked at him like he was the future. The first female stepped forward. She was covered in white feathers, her eyes like gold coins. I represent the sky nest of Filka, she said. We offer alliance, protection, and 10 daughters of prime fertility. She bowed deeply, her eyes never leaving his. Ethan blinked, shocked, before he could answer. Another female stepped up, taller, scaled in dark red, muscles carved like stone. We of the Fire Blood Clan offer title, land, and the right to rule 3 systems. Then came another and another. They all offered him gifts, wealth, power, status, even fleets. Each one saw him not just as a mate, but as a symbol. Ethan looked to the side where Princess Virela stood. Her face was unreadable, her arms crossed. She didn't speak, didn't step forward. She was waiting, not pushing, letting him choose. The ceremonial speaker turned to Ethan. According to tradition, you may select one house, or you may divide your lineage. In rare cases, the alpha has claimed multiple partners. Ethan felt his stomach twist. He had no idea how to respond to any of this. He wasn't a prince. He wasn't a king. He didn't want 10 daughters of prime fertility. He just wanted to breathe. I didn't come here to be an emperor, he said finally. I didn't fight to claim women like trophies. I fought to survive, the crowd murmured. Shocked by his honesty, many alien females looked confused, even offended. But others listened. He stepped forward, raising his voice just enough to echo. I don't care about fleets or palaces, he said. I care about what's real. If this whole ritual was supposed to find the strongest soul, then why does everyone want to own it now? The silence in the hall was sharp. Ethan turned slowly and walked toward Virela. He stopped in front of her, heart pounding. "You were the first one who didn't treat me like property," he sighed. "You warned me. You protected me." Virela looked at him, her voice quiet. "I had to. Because from the moment you stepped into the arena, I felt something I never felt before." Ethan smiled, small but sincere. "I'm not choosing a house," he said to the crowd. "I'm choosing her." The room burst into chaos. Some gasped, others shouted, elders from rival clans slammed their fists on the ground. "That's not tradition," one growled. "He has no right to limit his seed," another hissed. Virela stepped forward, her aura glowing. "I am of royal blood," she said. "I have the right to bind with whomever I please." The ceremonial speaker tried to calm the room, but the chaos grew louder. Guards stepped forward, unsure whether to stop the shouting or protect the chosen alpha. Suddenly, from the far back, a new figure entered the room. The Empress. Her presence silenced everything instantly. She walked slowly, her golden armor shining, her eyes glowing with power. She stood before Ethan, towering over him. Her voice was cold. "You refuse your duty." Ethan stood tall. "I refuse to be a trophy." The Empress tilted her head, studying him. "You won," she said. "You passed our deepest trial. And now you reject your prize?" "I didn't survive all this just to lose who I am," he replied. For a moment, no one moved. Then, to everyone's surprise, the Empress smiled, a small, unreadable smile. "Perhaps," she said softly. "You are wiser than I thought." She turned to the room, raising her hand. "The human has made his choice. Let it be recorded." And just like that, the chaos faded. Arguments turned to whispers, eyes turned to understanding. Ethan took Virela's hand. She held it tightly, her fingers trembling slightly. For the first time in days, he felt peace, even if it was temporary, even if the hardest part was still ahead. The ceremonial chamber was quiet, lit only by soft violet lights from the crystal ceiling. The room felt warm and sacred. Ethan stood at the center, wearing a dark robe stitched with symbols of every house, even the ones that had opposed him. On the opposite side stood Princess Virela, dressed in a flowing garment that shimmered like liquid starlight. Her hair was loose, her eyes bright, but her hands trembled slightly. This was no longer a battlefield. It was a bonding ground, the final stage of the ritual. Not of pain or dominance, but of choice. An elder female, draped in white and gold, raised her staff. "Do you come here of your own will?" she asked in a deep, steady voice. Ethan nodded slowly. "I do." "Do you accept the mate who has chosen you, with her whole bloodline behind her?" Ethan looked into Virela's eyes. There was no fear there now, only strength and something deeper, something that made his chest tighten. "I do." The elder turned to Virela. "Do you claim this male, one not of our blood, as yours?" Virela stepped forward and took Ethan's hand. Her voice didn't shake. "I do." The hall filled with a soft melodic hum. Ancient runes glowed on the floor, surrounding them both in a circle of golden light. The elder raised her staff once more, then gently lowered it between them. "Then let the marks be given." A servant stepped forward with a small stone bowl filled with silver ink. Virela dipped her fingers in and gently touched Ethan's chest. She drew 3 slow lines, one for strength, one for choice, and one for bond. Ethan, in return, used his own thumb to press a mark over her heart. He didn't know what the symbols meant, but something deep in him told him they were forever. As the markings dried, the elder's voice echoed again. "Now you are bound. Not by power, not by war, but by resonance." The chamber filled with soft chants as females from every house bowed their heads. Even those who once opposed Ethan now showed respect after the ceremony. Virela led Ethan through a garden lit by glowing plants and silver streams. They walked slowly, fingers entwined, saying little. There was peace in the silence. "You don't regret this?" Ethan asked gently. Virela looked at him, her smile warm. "No," she said. "For the first time, I feel like I chose something for me." Not for my bloodline, not for politics. You remind me that truth is stronger than tradition. They sat on a bench beneath a flowering tree that pulsed with soft green light. Virela leaned her head on his shoulder. Something is changing in you, she whispered. Ethan nodded slowly. I feel it too, he said. My body heals faster now. My senses, they're sharper. Even my dreams are different. Virela turned to face him. It may be the bond, she said. Our energy is merging. Even at a biological level. You mean, I'm becoming part alien? He asked, half joking, but her expression was serious. Not part alien, she said softly. Something new. Later that night, Ethan stood alone on the palace balcony. Looking at the twin moons of Zalthar, he thought about where he came from, Earth. So far away, he thought about how he was pulled into this by accident. But now, he didn't want to leave, because here, he wasn't just another nobody. He was something more behind him. Virela joined him silently, wrapping a robe around his shoulders. You're not just my mate, she said. You're the first of your kind to be accepted into our legacy. Ethan turned to her, his voice quiet. Do you think your people will truly accept me? She smiled, her silver eyes glowing in the moonlight. They already have, she said. And in time, they will follow you too. As the stars stretched across the sky, the two stood side by side. No longer princess and prisoner, no longer alien and human, but partners. Down in the science halls, far below the palace, silent alerts flashed on genetic scanners. Ethan's blood samples were reacting to alien energy. Molecules were rewriting themselves. Slowly but surely, the system flagged a soft warning. Unidentified hybrid evolution in progress. But no one noticed yet. No one understood what was coming. Ethan Cross, once just a forgotten man in space, had not only survived, not only won, not only mated, he was becoming the bridge between two worlds, and perhaps one day, something even greater.